All right, so we are recording here the inaugural kickoff, the very first show of Lessons with Leaders, hosted by me, Jake Allen. Happy to have a very special guest, a college friend of mine who's done an exceptional job early on in his young career, serial entrepreneur, sales expert in his own mind, in his own like, and his reputation precedes him. But happy to get into this content today. We're going to be a lot of very valuable information shared today. So Aaron, man, welcome. Thank you for being here.
I'm excited,
How you doing
man.
this morning?
I'm doing good. This is going to be an interesting conversation.
No doubt, man. We're excited to have you. So once upon a time, we'll kind of get into it. You and I served Ruby Tuesdays, a college restaurant, not too long ago. The last couple of years, a lot of things have changed, just leading us to our own careers and where you're at today. So we want to get into it. Want to talk about that journey. What's kind of motivated you to where you are today? What's on the horizon? But man, just want to see what's on your day to day right now. What's new with you? What's your day looking like today, and what's going on?
Well, today I'm going wakeboarding.
Okay.
So,
all right. That's a good day.
Yeah, it's a good Saturday. No, I think it's funny. I mean, we were chatting before this, talking about Ruby Tuesdays and Swanee Swipes for anybody that's over at FSU.
Of course.
Yeah. No, but I think this is really, really interesting. You know, I left Florida State a while ago, which I'm sure we'll get into, and I think we've connected maybe like twice.
Once or twice. Yeah, not too many, but connecting today.
And I think it's really interesting that it's coming kind of full circle, and now I'm on your podcast. So I'm excited to kind of talk about what has happened from there to here for you, for me, for everybody. And, I'm excited to dive in.
Of course. No, and I think that's part of the whole growing up process is you have the connections. They may not be every day. They may not be, direct reach, but having those people who you get in touch with throughout your career, throughout your lives, who are valuable, who have the lessons to kind of pick up on, and people you can speak with and use and build with. So happy to have you on here, man. I know when we last spoke, you mentioned working with your own sales company, and last, this year, 2020, we're now in April, launching Optum Sales. So a sales consulting company. We're working with companies to bring them full circle. Everybody can have a product, they can have supply, but unless you have that demand, you really have nothing. So kind of want to hear about what you're doing right now and how that sales orientation for an organization is really what they need to move to that next step.
So right now what I'm doing is I launched a company called Optima Solutions, which has kind of just been a compilation of everything that I've done up to this point. I started with marketing, then got into consulting, then got into service-based stuff. Then I kind of done a little bit of everything, like I mentioned yesterday. And at this point, I'm just really I'm in a people game, and I'm trying to teach companies and organizations how to build and grow sales teams right. And that kind of leads into other departments and helps in different leadership roles and stuff along those lines. And we're running some awesome sales teams and we're growing them, and it's been a very interesting journey to this point. But for the time being, I'm focused on getting the right people around the right table to capitalize on the right opportunities, and just take stuff a little less seriously and enjoy it a little bit more, because up until this point, it's just been stress, trying to figure out and move too fast and do different things. And it's been very interesting. But now I'm excited as hell. I've got an awesome team, and we're doing some really cool stuff, which I'm sure we'll get into.
No, absolutely. Let's get into it, man. I know, like I said, there's a lot of people who are inventors, investors, or people who have a product, but until you have that sale, you have nothing. What are you walking into some of these organizations who need help, or they're just trying to get to that next level? Like, what are the challenges you're seeing on day one that you're trying to resolve as you walk into these organizations?
A lot of it comes down to the system side of things, and then the people and the processes. And usually they have really, really underutilized talent, or overly leveraged talent, meaning somebody's buried who shouldn't be buried. So I think a lot of it comes down to just structure, and then I think the most important, and I read this in a book actually a while ago, and it stuck with me, is if you were to build your own business, right? Where would your focus be on more? Closing the next big deal or finding the next big person to come into your team? Right.
I think a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's all about the next deal," but until you have the people to push, you can never get there, and people fail to think that way.
100%. Well, I mean, I think what ends up happening is these startup business owners, they get going, they're doing everything, then they get one person to do something, another person to do something, and when it comes to sales, that's the last thing for a lot of these guys that are good at sales. Like, if you were to start a business, you would handle the sales, because you and I do sales, right?
Exactly.
So they get going, and they get to a point where they need to hire, and they just wing it. They just wing the sales hire, right? And they never truly get to actually leverage that department, right? Because then they just stay the same, they're bottlenecked, whatever the case may be. And the most important piece to building out that department is the recruitment side and bringing in the right people and making sure they have the right opportunities in front of them. I think it's funny that a lot of these companies come, and you can talk to a lot of different sales organizations. I mean, I'm sure you've probably been in some of them where they just want to recruit. Just want to recruit, and they churn and they churn and they churn and they churn. They just don't have the right opportunity to keep talent.
Of course, and I think
plain and simple.
Whether it's sales or accounting or finance, engineering, whatever industry it is, whatever job, right now you had this past year, 2021, deemed as a great resignation with over 40 million Americans, I believe, leaving their jobs, and people are failing to look at the talent inside of their organization, talent inside of their people, but rather looking elsewhere. Rather than trying to bring a B player to an A player, they're just looking for more A players. You talked about having people, quote unquote, buried within an organization. It's people who have that potential, but it's not quite realized either due to poor coaching, poor management, poor motivation. What are you doing when you're talking to sales leaders to get them to open up their sales people so they can have that full potential and they can bring those B players to A players?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think, first of all, let's say I'm trying to recruit you, right? I say, Jake, I got this cool opportunity for you. And you come and you talk to me, and I say, you can make 10% commission. Most of these guys are doing $10,000 a month, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, cool. You being a talented person and knowing that you're going to climb that ladder and $10K a month is nothing.
Right.
What's next? How do I get past that? Right. And I can't tell you.
Right.
I just lost you.
Yeah. No,
right?
Exactly.
I just lost the sale as a recruiter or somebody that's trying to get you into my business.
Right.
Because I can't paint you that vision.
Right.
And I can't show you how to go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, right? To actually doing the other things that progress. So, I think a lot of these sales leaders' jobs need to be not closing deals and focusing on the next deal, the next, a lot of these things. I think what a lot of these organizations try and push for is they have the sales leader or whoever, especially in the new organizations, they have that person in the trenches all day long, and they never focus on progression of the person that's at the bottom. Right?
Okay.
If you have somebody that has work ethic and you have somebody that's there and they're really, really working hard, right, and they have a lot of opportunity, right, the person on top should be to get them to the point where they're at.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So you're transferring decisions off of you.
Yeah, you're delegating
so
that.
You come in, you make this decision, now I can make the next decision that's higher.
Right.
And we keep moving and a lot of times people just recruit and hire and there is no plan to do that.
Exactly.
There's no plan to bring people in to progress them. There's no development of people, and they get stuck, and that's it.
I think a big thing too is, I personally speak with a lot of HR directors, people in that recruitment role, and it's always, it's not necessarily an interview on one side. It's an interview on both sides. It's a partnership. Now, when you're early on in your career, you're just trying to grab on anything, but those aren't really the people you want to have in your organization. You want to have somebody who has 5-10 years of experience, who they're going to come into your organization and they're going to change it. They're not going to be someone you have to babysit, but they're going to be someone who elevates the organization.
Yeah.
They need to see the career projection on day one, as you're saying, and really open that up and allow them to get to where they are. And I think from an upward trajectory of an organization, you have to have managers who themselves want to get to that next level, who maybe they're at a $10 million revenue company right now. The manager needs to be able to get to 100. The only way they do that is by the person they're hiring becoming in their role, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, as a lead, as a director, as a manager, as a whatever, you're there for managing accountability,
right?
Managing goals,
Right.
And if you're in sales or if you're on the top of any department, you're managing your roster like you would manage a football team.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like
Next
if your
man up
quarterback is
mentality,
not throwing
Right.
the right plays or
Right.
calling the right shots, then you need to find somebody to, and typically that's the person that's behind them,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think, and going back to like a talented college kid, right?
Yeah.
Like let's say, and I think a lot of people miss out on this because they go from college or they go from school or they go from something
Right.
and they're looking at these massive organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And the traditional route is like a couple years, then a couple years, then a
Right.
couple
3 or
years, and
4
you
years
keep
here
moving
and
and you
there.
keep moving,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And they dangle the carrot just far enough out
Keep
from
you
you,
there, yeah.
right? So you go from 5,000 a month to 10,000
Right.
to 15,
Right.
and then
Right.
you get this big jump as a manager to 20, and you're like, and then
Right.
and then you realize you've been there for 5-10 years,
Yeah.
right? What I do with these startups and with these smaller businesses that we work with, we're working with people that are either low or mid 6 figures a month, right?
Okay.
Info products,
Okay.
coaches,
Right.
service-based companies. But like, let's say we're trying to attract somebody that's looking at the big companies versus us.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go in and say, hey, look, this is our growth chart, right? This is where we're at today. This is where we want to be at the end of this quarter. This is where we want to be at the end of this year. And we need, yes, salespeople now, but we need people that we can develop into leaders.
Right.
Right? We're going to put an enormous amount of time, energy, and resources into the right people.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We're going to bring in a large talent pool, and hopefully we can grow and organically grow this thing up, but we
Right.
need people to help us do that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you grow, which doesn't have a speed or a timeline or a set, like
Right.
this is performance-based. If
Right.
your work ethic matches what we need to do and we can hit the goals and the milestones,
Right.
then we can keep progressing and you can keep moving up that ladder.
Right.
Right? So you find the right person that wants to climb that ladder. With corporate and with these other things, it's, you're going to be here for a year. You're going to be here for a year and a half. There's exceptions, but
Right.
I encourage you guys, if you're coming out of school, if you're doing something, go find a smaller business that you can
Right.
bake yourself into.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Learn, and that's kind of what I've done is, I started a couple of my own things. I started working for different startups, and it led to me finding a really good path
Right.
to bring a lot of value really quickly to these
Right.
companies. And that was through like a string of different things. But
Yeah, I kind of want to jump to that. So you made a good point. Depending on when someone's coming out of school or making that career jump, it's not always necessarily a security you should be looking for, but also the long-term growth and where you can, sometimes the smaller organizations, there's some growing pains, but an opportunity to mold the organization behind you as you grow within that position rather than jumping into a conglomeration, Fortune 500 company where it's so structured. And then kind of want to go back to, talking about where we are today, but where were we 4 or 5 years ago with you?
Mm-hmm.
And then what got you out of that? Okay, maybe 9 to 5 is not the thing for me. Maybe it is paving my own way and making sure that I set the tempo for my career. I'm in full control. Yes, you have more risk, but you also have more freedom. Curious kind of what was the connect with you? We're like, hey, I'm going to take this chance and
yeah.
What was the first real aha moment for you?
I think, it comes down to like self-awareness,
Right.
realistically, right? Because I could say, what's on my mind, and my mind is I just turned 25, and if it has any amount of security to it, that means I'm making a big mistake for
right,
me,
yeah.
right?
Right.
Now, that's not saying I don't make smart plays to make sure I'm
Of course.
secure, right? But here's what I think. I think a lot of people want to go from school, or when they're trying to figure out what's next, they want to go into something that feels safe, when in my eyes you should do the exact opposite.
Right.
Like now, I could make mistakes for the next 10 years and I would still have so much time that I would be completely fine to do anything. You know what I mean? And I think what happens when you do go a corporate styled route, which I'm not saying is right or wrong, you miss out on a lot of the experiences that turn you to a completely different level.
Okay.
Right? Like if you take a secure route from day one, what do you know, the worst thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to get fired or whatever the case may be, or you don't get the promotion. But when you go into different startups or you start trying to do your own thing, or if you have an idea and you start going into that, like you just learn at such a it's a completely different rate that you learn at.
Yeah.
Right? And
No doubt.
I think you miss out on that when you go too safe too soon.
Right.
Right? I think there's a lot of learnings that you need to make early on.
I think especially for people who, the younger demographic, people who do not have a family yet, you do not have really any responsibilities outside yourself. You can realistically sleep on a couch or whatever, make it happen, right? I mean, I'm a big believer in, and I think some of our older listeners are going to resonate with us more, but when you look back at whether it's, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you regret majority of the things that you did not do rather than the things that you did do. You don't necessarily regret, although it might hurt at times, the opportunities you took and you fell on your face. You regret more so the opportunities you didn't take and you just stood still. So the saying a lot in corporate America is climbing up the corporate ladder for people who go their own route, or maybe people who take, lead at an organization. It's not necessarily a climb. It's more so a leap of upward faith.
Yeah, I have a thought here, and this just came to me. I may have heard this somewhere, I may have not, but I think you need to say yes to everything until you realize that you should be starting to say no. Until
you're capped out and the opportunity cost.
Well, I think it's a matter of, at first you don't know your lane, you just have ideas,
right?
And the less you act on those ideas, the less momentum you're going to build for yourself, right? And if you start saying no to everything,
right,
as you go on and these things come to you, I mean, dude, that's just like you're giving yourself like you're just immobile, right? Like you can't act. So the more that you act on ideas and the more you do things and the more that opportunity comes to you, when you're thinking ideas, when you're acting on ideas, like good things are going to happen. When you're laid back and immobile and you can't make decisions and you're stuck like that. And the more that you're stuck like that, the more you train yourself to stay in that position for a very long time, So I think going back to what I said, like say yes to the ideas, say yes to the opportunities as they come, even if you're not ready, say yes, figure it out.
Right.
And eventually once you find your lane,
right.
Like now my life, the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, I'm sure, I don't even know if people, they don't know they had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
Because I was doing so many different things.
Exactly.
Now I really try to say no more than I say yes.
And I think there's value for sure in being kind of selective with who you work with, the opportunities you take. But when you don't have anything on your plate, you can't afford to say no. And I've always been a big believer. If you have to get something done, you have to choose two people. You have person A who has nothing on their plate. They're stagnant. They have all this free time. And you have person B who has so much on their plate. Their time is tight. It's honestly better to give that task to person B because they're in the motion. Isaac Newton's first or second law of motion is a body of motion. Law of motion is a body of motion, stays in motion, a body at rest stays at rest. And when you are in that scared mindset of, I don't want to make a chance, I don't want to take a risk, I don't want to fail, you can't get out of it.
You just got to fucking
gotta
do
get
it.
moving.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree with that for sure.
Doesn't matter if you're 30, 40, 50, whatever, especially when you're in your 20s, like you just gotta do it. Go for it. I think those leaps or that decision where you're like, oh shit, like fuck, and you do it.
Yeah.
You always come out better on the other side. No matter in the time if you're like, wow, this is super painful or this sucks. I failed publicly. Like, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's
no,
okay.
and I'm a big believer, and I want to kind of bring it back to when we were in the same college together, and I saw you take some of those chances. We'll talk about it in a second, but I'm a very big believer in you either win or you learn. There's no such thing as a true failure. Fail often, fail quick. Don't be afraid of failure. Fail once. Don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
You only fail when you fail to learn from an opportunity, or when something happens, you don't see it as a lesson. It's just, oops, it happened, and you don't learn from that, and you make the same mistake again. Then it's an issue. But fail multiple times at multiple things. Fail once at everything you do and learn that lesson. But say yes and figure it out on the back end. And I know that's something that you did, and kind of want to go back to when we were in college. You were bartending. I was bartending, whatnot, and you had a job opportunity to become marketing for Brick House Pizza, and you had no idea what you're doing. I remember, you're like, that was a marketing job. They're pay me $500 a month. I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but I'm gonna figure it out. So let's get into that a little bit, man.
That's actually a really funny story, and I think that was one of those moments where you just raise your hand and whatever. And, well, basically, they had changed ownership or something was going on where they were swapping like the head manager or whatever, and they need a marketing person, and they were paying, I think it was like $1,000 a month, and I asked if they were paying, and they were like yes, and I shot my hand up and I took it over, and I had no clue what I was doing, no idea. So that's when I think I built my first website there. I think I built my, started running ads for the first time. I hired Jordan Cruz, if you remember him, to do some some Instagram stuff, and it worked really well. Like, it worked really well. Right. I just got to basically put a blindfold on and do YouTube homework and figure shit out. Right. And it worked really well. And then me and Max Muller started doing some dude, I can't remember the name of that business. It's so sad. It was something. It was something Summit. It wasn't Social Summit. Okay. It was Elevated Media and Marketing. Okay. That's what it was. Okay. Yeah. So me and Max, who, for those of you guys who don't know, obviously Max or anybody at Florida State, we were in the same fraternity, and he was a lot older than I was, and we were doing different things, but he was doing content, I was doing some marketing stuff, so we moved into a house together, gutted a room, and it's actually really funny. It's on my Instagram, but it's like it's a room with nothing in it but 2 desks, and we started this company. Yeah, we just started trying different things and calling people and trying to make stuff work, and that really was like the start to a super, super progressive like chain of stuff that I never even thought I would be doing. Right.
And then kind of going from that to, I know we talked about it, but stacking skills. So taking that chance and that opportunity and learning from it. Yeah. And then taking the next thing that knocks on the door and learning from that. And next thing you know, you're 5, 6 jobs, careers, whatever you want to call it, down the line with all these accumulated skills. So I kind of want to go from like, how do you make that pivot? How do you make that decision rather than, I'm going to go really deep into marketing to, well, let's pick up something else along the way. Like, how does that decision really, how do you weigh that decision from, well, let me stick in one niche and just dive in to like, let's try a bunch of different things. And who knows, 10 years down the line, we're well stacked with all these different talents that we can, use at any time.
Well, I'll start with, for anybody who doesn't know my track record or what I've done or my slew of failed and decently successful businesses. Yeah. I've owned a bikini company. I have ran a marketing agency. I have done artist management and development for rappers. I've shot music videos. I've been a director of music videos. I have done specialized in real estate things. I've done Airbnb. I've done sales. I've done it's been all over the place, and I think that kind of goes to say yes to everything until you need to start saying no. And what really was for me is like when I started getting around tables of people who were better than I was, and I could start to provide value, like true value, that's when I really started, okay, this is something I'm very naturally gifted at. Right. You know?
And that being just
for me it was I'm just a solutions guy. Okay. Like it doesn't matter what the problem is. I typically have a very positive mindset about finding a solution. Right. And I don't take we can't do this I don't take it very seriously. Yeah. Okay. And that started for me in sales because I mean, realistically, I sold my own stuff back in the day. Right. I sold my own services when I was doing marketing. I sold my own services when we were doing content. I sold my own services when we were doing artist management, when we were doing events, when we were doing, I mean, there's some crazy stories where like it was like make it or break it. Right. Like for example, Social X, our first event, we had 350 seats that we needed to sell. We were 30, 45 days out. We had, I don't remember, 10, 15 tickets sold. And we had spent a lot of money on marketing.
No shit moment for sure.
Yeah, my partner put a lot of money in, and you know, we were working really fucking hard. And it was like 3, 4 a.m. and we were sitting there and we're like, why aren't we selling tickets? Right. And we switched out, you know, thought about, okay, we have all this traffic. What are we going to do with it? We don't have any data. We switched out from being able to go to the website, buy the ticket right there to hiding the ticket price, and they had to opt in with their name, email, and phone number to see the pricing of the ticket.
Okay.
Woke up the next day, we had 50, 60 numbers. I started calling and sold that bitch out. Yeah. So it was one of those moments where I was like forced to either do something that I was really uncomfortable with or whatever. And sales just kept becoming this thing that I could solve big problems with.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
Like it just kept reoccurring and showing up. And the more I found those problems to solve, those problems got bigger and bigger and bigger. And they became easier and easier and easier for me to solve. And I think that's what happens when you start to say yes to a lot of things. Is you start to be like, okay, wow, this was really successful. This I'm not fucking good at. You know,
well,
like this is not what I should be doing.
Okay.
I mean, it just led from being good at sales volume to good at really structuring the sales process to good at helping give and find people to give good opportunities to and developing people. Right. And then when I unlocked how do I develop a team? How do I develop people? How do I put them in competition, but healthy competition? How do I hold them to different standards, accountability? How do I grow individuals? Mm-hmm. That's when sales started to explode for me. And that's when I started getting really, really, really involved in these companies and taking them to the next level. And we're not talking about like a minor change. Like we're talking like millions of dollars changing out of just focusing on development of people and having a plan. You know what I mean? For companies that are starting very small and growing very fast, very big, it all comes down to the people. So that was like, it led from sales at a volume myself to figuring out why I was good at sales to how do I put that into other people to how do I structure that? How do I plan for this? And now what's the process that I do every single time I step into one of these companies?
Well, and that's a big thing too is when you do something you're uncomfortable with, whether it's public speaking, sales, making cold calls, whatever it is, you eventually become comfortable with that. And the comfort level often correlates with the talent, your ability. I'm a big believer happiness correlates directly with progression. Like when you're doing something you enjoy, when you're good at it, when you're having success, it's a lot easier to get up and do it every single day. Mm-hmm. And as you focus on sales or cold calling or public speaking, accounting, whatever talent thing it is that you're trying to develop, once you do something you're comfortable with, you then focus on the next thing you're uncomfortable with and the next thing. And what you're saying is down the line, now everything that you look back 2 years ago you were terrified of, you're now running seminars on it. You're now coaching people on how to do it. You're now going in there and you're like, hey, listen, I understand where you're coming from. I used to not be good at this thing myself. I became better through repetition.
It's experience.
Day by day. And experience, exactly. Yeah. Experience is a great teacher. Reputation is the mother of all skill. Mm-hmm. And then doing that on a day-to-day basis, you end up solidified, really good at it, and then you can focus on what's next. What's the next thing you become better at?
Yeah, I think anybody that, especially our friends, I've talked to a lot of them, or not all of them, but, a lot of people that I'm good friends with or have been in the past.
Right.
Every time I see them, I'll go back to my hometown once a year, twice a year, and they're like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to do an Airbnb.
Right.
I want to get into real estate. Every single year I go back and talk to them, it's the same thing. I want to do this thing. I'm going to start this thing. I'm planning this thing. I'm planning this thing. That's the difference.
And then that kind of ties back to what I think a lot of listeners will resonate with, people who might be on the fence or they're looking to take that jump. They're looking to do the next thing. Mm-hmm. And what we're talking about just 10 minutes ago, saying yes and then figuring out the back end.
Fucking do it.
What would you say to people who, in this generation, in this era of time, everything is so criticized in a lot of ways. You have somewhat of a cancel culture where people just are naturally hesitant to take a chance because they don't want it to blow back up on them. They'd rather be comfortable at a 7 out of 10, success and happiness than take that chance. What would you really say to those people who are stuck, who every single year it's the same conversation you had last year, and not the progression that, hey, I was going to do this last year, I already did it, this is the next thing, but I'm still planning on doing the same thing we talked about, 2-3 years ago.
I think it comes down to self-awareness again.
Okay.
I think what we're talking about, everybody sounds really cool.
Right.
But when you actually start going up against the wall, or you're looking down at the, the jump that you're about to need to make, pretty fucking scary, dude. You know, and a lot of people just, they don't ever do it, you know. And I think it's either A, because they're comfortable where they're at,
right,
and they don't need to make the jump, and they don't truly want to, you know, do different things.
They don't want to be in the pain. They want to.
Well, I think it's, you know, a lot of this comes down to like your why and what you're trying to do.
Right.
You know.
Okay.
You know, I have a pretty good why that motivates me each day and allows me to make different moves. And then, you know, the way I grew up was figure it out yourself kind of mentality. You know, I had good support, but it was, you know, a big family and had to figure shit out yourself.
Yeah,
you know,
fend for yourself a little bit. For
and
sure.
I think people just, they get stuck. They get stuck around the people that they're around. They get stuck around the mindset they're in. They get stuck around the decisions that they're used to making. You know what I mean? Like it's, and it happens to everybody. And even if you're very successful, like you can be stuck. You know what I mean? Like there's always that next level of stuck that you have to try and figure out.
I kind of want to go back to what you just said, because I think probably a point that's going to resonate with a lot of people is being stuck and changing your physical environment, you know, moving cities, moving locations. That's tough. That's hard to do at times. But what's oftentimes most captive, and by that I mean holding people back, is their actual personal circles. People who you may be around who might be your good friends, and you may go out with them on a Saturday night and have a great time and, you know, party until a Sunday morning. But when it comes down to it, they themselves might even be holding you back. And then what you see a lot of the times is people who are looking to better themselves make a change, and next thing you know, they're in deep isolation, or their mentors are just authors and people of that sort. That's a tricky transition to get into. But just what is your thoughts on someone who is looking around them and like, I want to be better, I want to do more, but I know I got to get rid of all these people if I want to get to that level?
Be an example, you know, like you don't need to think of it as getting rid of them, but you do need to. This is actually a really good point. You're familiar with Alex Hormozi, yeah?
Not off.
Okay, you need to be.
Okay, I need to be.
You need to be.
Okay.
He's an absolute.
Alex
Hormozi, yeah. I was listening to a video of his, and actually on my way over here, he was. He's talking about how these billionaires and his mentors and the people that are above him, how tight they keep their circles. Right. Okay. And how the most valuable asset is not time, it's attention. Okay. And the way that he was framing it was, you know, when you give attention to this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, and all of these people, like your attention is so spread thin that you can never actually have that energy back to go, you know, and give attention to the right things. Okay. I think that's super relevant. I mean, you know, when you're looking around at the people around you, if they don't really inspire you, or if they're not super supportive of what you're trying to do, just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, like, people always want to see you do well, but not better than they're doing. Yeah. No, that's very true. And I think it's brutal, but it's true. Like, you know, I personally, with my circle, like, I want to see them doing well. Right. But if they one up me, I'm going to one up them. You know, and
I think that's healthy. That's very healthy.
It is,
have that competition where
100%.
It's a healthy competition. And I think having that mentality of, Aaron's gonna do better than me. Well, I'm gonna do better than Aaron. Yeah. The next thing you know, we're battling each other, not at in spite, but in a very, you know,
well, it's the
let's
same
get
thing.
Better.
Going back to what we do with teams, like that's what we do.
Exactly. You have that competition. I think that's very affluent in a successful sales organization. Or really, you know, there's a lot of ways to structure that, regardless if it's sales, accounting, whatever it is, to have that competition. But I think the difference between envy and jealousy, in my opinion, I've always said this, jealousy is not wanting to see the other person do better. Enviness is wanting to do as good as that other person. So if that makes sense, instead of like competing where, Aaron's doing better than me, I'm going to step up myself to do as well as Aaron. That's healthy. What's unhealthy is Aaron's doing better than me. Let me find a way to cut the angles out from Aaron so he's not. Let me bring him back to where I am. Right.
Yeah, that's not cool.
You know what I'm saying? You have to get to that.
Yeah, nobody above you is going to be thinking about you, thinking
Exactly.
about them
No,
wrong. You know
of
what I
course.
mean? But no, I mean, I think like the friends thing was like the hardest thing for me.
Right.
Because yeah, dude, that was the toughest part of my life, really. Like it was. I left. What everyone told me was awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone was like, "Oh, that's sick. You're doing this, and you're out with these people, and blah blah." And I just woke up one day and left it, literally like that. And that next year and a half, 2 years, it's the little things, dude. Like you look back at these people who were your friends, and like next time you bump into somebody, they're like, "Oh yeah, this person was talking shit about you," and then like this person's doing that, like.
Right.
And then you see them in person a year and a half later, and they're like,
same spot.
Well, not even same spot. Like, I hope they progressed, but what you're just saying is like you don't have that same commonality with them anymore, and they want to treat you and act with you and talk with you the way that they did a year and a half ago.
But you're not there.
And when you don't react the same way, or you don't think the same thing is funny, or you like, that's just not me anymore. They get really disappointed in a way. You know what I mean? And
I think it's also said a lot too, where, if you surround yourself with people who are not on that same mission, at a certain point, you coming home saying, "Oh, this is what I did today." You telling them about your day-to-day inner workings and what you're doing, it comes out as bragging, and then that becomes that source of enviness, where they're now trying to take away from you, right? And it is kind of pick and choose. Make sure you have a tight circle. I'd rather have 2 or 3 absolute dog best friends than a bunch of acquaintances who really just I'm at their disposal. It's a convenience for them rather than a support for me.
Yeah, I think when you leave a bunch of people who you're very accustomed to, your best relationships will come back to you like later down the road.
Right.
Like I mean, we were cool, like, but we weren't like super tight.
But we also had very much of a mutual respect, and it was
for sure,
I want to see her and do well. I want to see me do well.
Yeah, 100%. And now, like, this is really fucking cool for me because it comes back around. And I think that's what a lot of people don't get is like if you're the first to make the jump, there will be people that come with you, just not at the same time.
Right.
And if they don't, that's cool too. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna find new people, and I think. What I started to realize is like the way that my circle has gone since I made that jump, I got around people that I could learn from, and then I figured out how to give value to those people, and then I had a seat at that table, right, with those individuals, and then when an opportunity came into the table, I was able to help facilitate that.
Connect the dots.
Right? And it just kept going and going. Like you constantly get in, you're going to meet one person that brings you into this new group, and you can't offer any value because you're not at their level, and you learn, and then you find a way to give value. And now an opportunity comes in, and they think of you, right? Like, oh, Jake's got this awesome podcast. Like, we could probably do this with him, and blah, 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 right? You're able to provide value at a new level.
Right.
So then you get to start off to eat off the same table as everybody, and when you get an idea or you get an opportunity, you bring it into that circle, right? And that always keeps happening, right? And eventually you're solving really big problems with really awesome people. And that's kind of how it goes, but you always leave that circle because there's always people that will never progress from there, right? There's people that stay there, and it's all self-awareness, man. Everything comes down to self-awareness, like
So I want to kind of get into that, and we'll probably wrap up here in a couple minutes, or so. A couple topics I want to hit on here is that self-awareness, and that's something you hear about. Highly effective people pivot. They may take chances, but they also realize when things aren't working. They are very self-aware, and they're not going to, insanity by definition is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. What would you say is your check-in for you? Like, what would you recommend listeners to do as like a quarterly, weekly, monthly check-in? Like, did this work? Did this not work? What's next? Like, how are you doing that? Is that through like meditation? Is that through journaling? Is that through like having a mentor that you kind of come to and you're like, hey, this is what's going on in my life?
Are you talking about how I feel as a person, or are you talking about how the business is doing and the opportunity that I'm going into?
Both, and not necessarily how either are going, but what is your strategy to make that evaluation?
I think it's how you wake up in the morning, how you're feeling.
Right.
Luckily I've got a pretty awesome support system around.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
married,
Of course.
wife Paulina, she's badass, and she keeps me on point pretty, and she can tell. She'll be like, "Wow, you're drained today.
Yeah.
Like you did something wrong today."
Right.
We actually had that conversation yesterday, and then we went to this awesome seminar. It was like a guy named Vitali or something from Poland. It was breath work. It was one of the. It was one of those things where you hear about it and you're like, "This is too weird for me, so I'm not going to go do it." And then you do it and you're like, "I get it. I understand."
Okay.
Yeah. But I think if you're not learning, or if you're not getting value from what you're doing, or you feel stuck, if you don't feel progressive, that's when you know you're doing something wrong.
Okay. So when what you're doing is draining and not building, so you're saying it's big on your energy levels and what?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some things that drain the hell out of you that you have to do, right? And there's going to be things that suck that you're always going to have to do. And I encourage you to do more of the things that suck, because
eventually they start sucking less.
Well, you just start progressing faster.
Right.
Most people don't want to do those things, or they do them once and then they, don't go back to them. Yeah, man. I mean, I try my best to stay on a routine. I listen to what people say to me, and wow, dude, you don't seem yourself today, or I always try and self-reflect. I do meditate a lot.
Okay.
Like that has been something that's been very interesting. I work out consistently. I try and eat super clean. So like personally, I stay as dialed as I can in that side of things. And what I'm realizing is I like helping people.
Right.
And that's where your energy's coming from. It is, and it also is to my detriment at this point.
You're doing too much at times.
I do too much, and I make other people's problems my own problems. Yeah. And
it's funny how
I'm focused on taking care of myself before I go into anything else. And
right.
So I think to sum that up, like if you're not learning or there's no progression, so if you're stuck somewhere and you've been stuck there and you're stuck trying to solve for the same thing, or if you're stuck in this mindset or you feel bad, you got to make an adjustment or a change. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can fall into the trap, but the only thing that's changing is the calendar, right? 2019 seems the same as 2020, seems the same as 2021 for some people. Maybe not with the pandemic and everything, but what I'm saying is a lot of people, if you took a snapshot of them 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, it's the same year, just different. It's just a different date. But what they're doing, their income, their circle, their happiness, their joy, their even traveling is all relatively stagnant. And to take that jump and to take that realization of, I may even like what I'm doing right now, but it's not getting me to where I want to go, right? I'm at that 70% of the 100% potential, and having that, check in, incredibly valuable. Judging your energy, kind of what you said, is it taking from me? Is it building me? Is this the right thing for me, right? Mm-hmm. Should I hire somebody else to do this for me, right?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then one thing I want to talk about too is going back kind of to the changing your friend group and getting at better networks and, the isolation. And a lot of that can come, all at once. But the big thing for a lot of people is not having direct access to mentors necessarily, maybe not having someone who's in their inner circle who can help get them there. Thankfully, we live in a generation and an era where you can literally have a plethora of information at your disposal through technology, through books, through podcasts. What has been some things for you throughout your young professional career, your life, that were aha moments, maybe in people who you never met, people who may not even be living, but their information they passed along and they gave was a mentorship in some way to you because you took so much from it?
There's a lot of them. I think not having access to mentorship is a bullshit excuse,
right,
for anybody at this point. you can listen to how somebody thinks. You can listen to how they speak. You can get pretty much any answer that you want from them just from content that's out there from massive people. I mean, John Maxwell, David Goggins, Jocko.
Well, military guys.
I love it, dude. I love it.
Get hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's kind of the stuff that I've been reading and going into. I mean, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Dude, there's books about reading. Dude, there's two. What I've been doing recently is I only listen to podcasts and I only listen to books. I don't listen to music right now, which has been very hard for me. But so I'm listening to a lot of different things that just kind of serve. And I think this is a really big, actually important piece for anybody listening that's getting into anything, or even if you're at a super high level. Like, you need to be so conscious about what you're consuming. Food, drinks, people, content. Like, if you're just straight up listening to garbage music 24/7,
young thug every day.
I mean, whatever. There's times for that.
Yeah, of course. I still got to enjoy the moment. But I think what you're saying is missed by a lot of people. People talk about juice cleanse and I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go on keto. Well, people fail to realize a lot of times that your diet is not just the food and water you put in your body, but it's the people you surround yourself, the content you listen to.
Think about this, right? Not going too deep, but think about what's happening in like Russia and Ukraine right now. Right. It's a media war between who's telling what story to who, and it's like that's all over the world right now. So like if you're constantly playing into the wrong things, you're constantly listening to the wrong things, people are making decisions for you based on what they're putting in the head. And that's to an extreme, right? That's like news and media and stuff along those lines. But
it's true to everyday life.
It's the same thing. Like if you're just listening to the radio and you're listening to music and you're watching TV all the time and you're constantly like whatever you feed yourself is constantly going to come out in different ways, right? So I don't even know why we got on that, but
just having that centered, making sure you're consuming the right information is big for leadership, and just making sure that even within an organization, the content that's provided within that organization, whether it's a high leader coming in, upset from something in his personal life, and then that's trickling down the organization.
That happens all the time.
The subconscious feeds off the material he's provided, and that can trickle into.
I remember why I actually brought that up. If you're around people that are constantly bringing anything negative to you, right? Like, there's always the person where, oh, how's it going, man? Dude, I'm tired. This sucks. Like, I gotta go to fucking work. I gotta go do this. Like, blah, blah. Like, that person is no good for you. Period. And you desperately trying to help them is not going to change them. It's not. And what ends up happening is like a lot of people are like they're empathetic to a lot of different things, and that's their personality trait, right? And so they get around one of those people, and then they attract another one, and another one, and another one. And next thing you know, you're the friend, therapist, and your energy is completely taken from you. And I struggle with that, dude. I like helping people.
Absolutely.
I got a lot of energy from helping my friends get really cool positions and jobs, and I've done that a lot. But then I start to realize that I start to take on problems that aren't mine, and that drains you.
And you got time and energy are two of the most finite resources available, right?
Energy,
you cannot get time
focus.
Back and get money back. You can get energy back, but it's hard, right? And you cannot get time back, and maybe the only non-renewable resource, right? So you want to make sure you're allocating it properly. So we talked a lot about mindset, your background, kind of what propelled you to get to where you are. Want to just hear what's on the horizon. So I know you've talked a little bit to me, just as well as not your resume, but how have you put all the lessons we kind of talked about, all the mentality, mindset, into play? Kind of give me the last, cliff notes, last couple of years, and tell me about where you're going these next several years.
Well, I've made some big realizations of like what I like doing, and what I'm good at doing, and where I start to feel a lot of resistance. And I've gotten a lot of clarity around people and how I should balance my time. And there's been a lot of different things, and I'm learning every day. I mean, like, the statement that comes out right now could change tomorrow.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But right now, I'm focused on developing people and putting together a very, very awesome and exponentially growing team. That's what I want to do. I want to get very talented people around me, and I want to get very ambitious people around me, and I want to set that table, if that makes sense, right? I want to put the steak down. I want to put the potatoes down. I'm a very good. I bring a lot of opportunity in. Just my nature. I like talking to people. I like shaking hands. I like doing stuff. I've never had my own Navy freaking SEAL squadron team that can go in and help me solve these problems, and that's what Optima has become. Is we just have some of the brightest minds I've collected in a long time, and we're very aligned, and we're ready to rock. I mean,
you guys started what? So April 9th today. You guys started back in early February, right around that time.
Yeah, we're about to close our second month.
And tell me about the revenue you guys have already picked up on. I know we talked about that a little bit.
So we've gone from, I'll say this, we've gone from $0 in revenue to low mid six figures in about 2 months.
As a company.
As a business, yeah. Right. And, I mean, the whole basis of this business is we're not working for companies, we're working for the missions that they serve, right? So that's a big point. And we're solving big problems for companies that have been stuck or are really ready to expand. And really the way that we're able to do that is just having very talented people and a methodical way that we go into these teams and that we change things. And, I talked about it a little bit earlier. Sales momentum, which you brought up yesterday, was like the baby of this, right? Right. When we were here, we were solving the same problems. We were doing similar work, but there was no process to it. It was very random chaoticness, right? And this has been
on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, really, I want to spend time with people that I can help develop, that will ultimately help develop me. I want to get people that are around me that are much better than I am in different areas, and I want to solve bigger and bigger problems that people are facing. And the reason that we're trying to do this is we want to make impact with the people that are making impact, right?
Right.
So if I can help, let's say this podcast was, you were, I don't know, maybe a different thing because we don't work with podcasts, but let's say you're a sales organization. You got 10 reps, 10 guys. You guys are selling an info product that helps with mindset or whatever, helps people start their own businesses, whatever the case may be, and you've been stuck at that same level for so long. Right. Well, if we can go in and remove the pieces that aren't right, and we can help you guys get past that, you guys are free to go impact a bunch of different people, and we're able to help put the guardrails down and help you guys get there along the way. So ultimately, our vision for this is we want to own a portfolio of businesses. We want to have vested interest in multiple companies. The way that we're doing that, we don't have millions and millions and millions of dollars to go buy companies. I mean, we could buy companies if we really wanted to. We're going the sweat equity route. Right? So we're helping companies in multiple different ways, but if they do come all the way up the value ladder, we're actually getting vested interest. We're getting vested interest in this companies, right? So there's a lot of different arms and pieces to what we're doing right now. I would say, our biggest thing is leading with the sales department, right? That's where we get into first, but then it does trickle into marketing. It trickles into staffing. It trickles into helping them get the right people in the right seats. And, the goal is to help them grow a lot faster than they could grow by themselves, period. Yeah.
No, and I think it's a big issue for a lot of companies, right, is one, having that self-look where we're like, all right, we do need to get somebody in here to help us out. But then two, kind of getting the kinks out of the way, getting it wide open, taking out a value. So you guys are really coming in more of a partner, a consultant. So we'll kind of wrap up here. Just what if we circle back in 2 years, 2014, like where do you want to be? What do you want to do to put out everything we talked about, everything that you've done up to this point into action? Like where's Aaron Platt 2024?
2024, we'll have a portfolio we'll we're going to have a team that's expanding businesses and coming up with our own.
Okay.
The grand vision, if we go 10 years past that,
Right.
at least for me, is to build a space, to build a team, to build a culture around starting ideas.
Right.
Right. So whether you have an idea or, a business is stuck or anything, they'll be able to come to us, not necessarily as an incubator, but we'll have the resources, the people, and the resources to do what needs to be done to get things to the next level. So I think in 2 years, we'll have a solid team. We'll have impacted many, many different businesses. But I think, what is going to end up starting to happen is that portfolio of what we're doing will be a little bit more clear, a little bit more focused.
Okay.
And yeah, man, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
Tell you. Things are changing so fast right now. I can tell you it's going to be working with startups.
Right. Okay.
And we're going to continue on the path that we're doing right now by being the best in
Right.
developing teams
Okay.
and developing the tech that they work off of.
Right.
We'll be known in the space for that.
Okay.
Yeah, man. It's
going
to be a journey.
It's exciting. It kind of goes back to, doing what you do with these organizations, is giving their people, empowering their people to see the full picture and for them to be part of the organization and grow with it, and then you grow in the actual organizations. I think what you've done, you've been involved in 5 or 6 different businesses at a pretty high level, chief position, main guy at the table, have had some smooth exits and, continued and just drive the needle home and just continue to build the resume, if you will. A lot of that coming back to mindset, not being afraid to take the jump. Again, it's not a climb up the corporate ladder at times. It's an upwards leap of faith, and you hope you can land at the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And doing all those things and not being afraid to ruffle some feathers along the way and put yourself first. Obviously helping out a lot of people, but at the same time making sure that you are where you need to be and where you're going to continue to go. So
yeah.
I'll look forward to having you on here in a couple of years, man, and just seeing where you are. Knowing everything that you've done up to this point is just going to continue to propel you forward. Hopefully, the listeners got a good amount of information out of this today, stuff they can apply in their day-to-day, whether it's business, personal, making sure you put yourself around the right people, making sure that you're not stagnant, you're continuing to elevate yourself to that next level, that you don't look back in 12 months saying, I haven't done anything, I haven't evolved. People can evolve. Make sure you're doing that. It sounds like you're doing all the right things, man, and I'm looking forward to hearing it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting, and we'll definitely make this happen in 2 years.
Yeah,
I think that'll be cool. Yeah, last thing I'll leave with.
Of course. Take it away.
It's completely fine if you don't know where you're going. It's completely fine if you're making one step and letting the next step reveal itself after you do make that jump. The fact of the matter is that 99.9% of people don't make that step.
Right.
And if they do, they fail once and they're done. Don't be that 99.9%. Right. It's very easy to step out of that percentage. You just have to have some guts, and you just got to do it. And I think that's the biggest lesson from this podcast. If you get anything, and if I'm going to teach you anything, it's to really just make those jumps even when they're the most uncomfortable.
Right.
And that will always lead to something brand new and exciting. Always. Doesn't matter if it's a massive failure. Right, I've had plenty of those.
Yeah.
So if you're young, getting out of college, if you're doing something, if you're older, if you're working corporate right now, if you have this idea, just go for it. Don't listen to the noise. Figure it out for yourself. Make the failure. The more failures you have earlier, the more dangerous you are at 30, meaning the more valuable you can become. Same thing in personal life. Like, the more stuff you try, the more relationships you have, the more things and hands and shape, the more stuff that you touch and able to get around you, the more dangerous you become as a husband, father, or whatever you know what I mean?
Exactly,
yeah. So it's life is an experience game. Don't take it too seriously.
Right.
Enjoy the process as much as you can, because it's going to be stressful.
Right. Fall in love with the work. We're not saying quit your jobs by any means, but don't settle. Right. Don't be stuck where you don't want to be. Don't be the person who's 40, 50, 60 years old looking back saying, oh, man, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. I think it's true for many people. You regret the things you did not do more than the things you did.
100%.
Right. So take the leap.
This is really deep, and I'm gonna end it with this because I know we gotta wrap it up.
Yeah.
I was listening to. I do not know who it was, but this is actually really deep. The richest place in the world is not the banks. It's not the oil fields. It's the graveyard. And the reason being is that there's millions and millions and millions and millions of ideas buried there that never came to life, that died with those people, right?
Yeah. No, it's true.
So, you know, I was listening to this podcast, and this guy was talking about, you know, how when you go to your deathbed, right, you don't want the ghosts that are around you to be the ideas that you never brought to
fruition,
to life. You know what I mean? So, act on whatever comes to your head, man.
Yeah.
Just do it.
No.
You know, I think it's a sad thing to go a year with the same idea and it just never comes out. I mean, that's terrible, you know? So do it, learn from it, live it. Maybe it's your freaking golden ticket to your most best self, you know? So you got to try if you want to succeed. And with that, I'm going wakeboarding.
We're done. Have a goal, make it a plan, make it an action, do it, make it a reality.
Yeah, this has been fun, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Being on, appreciate it.
Yep.